Right, let's talk a little about this. People had asked me about Maulana Jalali, Ashraf Jalali, and this whole thing going on in Pakistan right now. It's become a huge fitna. This thing about him critiquing Fatima radiallahu anha's decision. Now, in all fairness, I think from what and I haven't done a huge amount of reading on it. Mahin Mirza, just on a side note, she's asked that she hopes I can have Khalil Andani on my podcast. I'm aiming to have Professor Khalil Andani on for this Friday coming up, inshallah. So I am already in conversation. Been WhatsApping all last week. We were hoping to go on yesterday, Sunday, but our timings just couldn't meet. So we're looking for maybe this Friday if we can, and we're going to speak about modes of revelation. Right. So so this Maulana Ashraf Jalali, to be fair, I think he wasn't really trying to criticize Fatima radiallahu anha. He was just trying to discuss the context of what was going on, and and he said, I think he said that, well, she was mistaken in the Fadak issue. I think he does say that it's an ijtihadi mistake. And then it's become a huge thing, and people have said, and there's been like pushback both ways, and now Maulana Saeed Asad has kind of set out a debate challenge that we will debate you. So this is the and before you know it, it turns into one of these these things. So they've got this whole right going on, these people fighting at it. But and I think I watched this part of his video where he responds by saying, Maulana Jalali responds by saying, look, I never even said that, and I was saying it in this context. And yeah, I think this is a very passionate topic in places like Pakistan. And it's a very sensitive topic to do with Fatima radiallahu anha. I have already spoken on it. I don't really need to go into that detail. I've got a video on Fadak. You can watch my clip, my views. I do feel that, yes, I do agree that, look, that I feel that both narratives have some holes in them. It's not the Sunni narrative and the Shia narrative both have holes. When we look at it from her claim, from Fatima radiallahu anha's claim of inheritance, I feel she was correct. But I feel that the issue of fate, the issue of land or any property that is not inherited, that is acclaimed by military conquests or things like this, expeditions in the lifetime of the Prophet, wouldn't have been the Prophet's personal property. It would have been something which was part and parcel of the Islam kind of sphere. But then this narrative has holes in it from the aspect of the response. So in that angle, I would agree that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was correct. But then the response he gave about the inheritance hadith, I would feel doesn't really make much sense. So it's like, it's all... And I think these are problems really, because, these sects have become institutionalized, and they've, there's people are just now like so tunnel vision, and Sunnis and Shia, there isn't really a balanced mind out there, unfortunately. And I feel when it comes to Fatima radiallahu anha, truth be told, I do think that, some of the Sunni concepts, some of the Sunni ulama haven't really been fair to her. Just generally as a person, I do accept that. And I can see, I think it was not even obviously after the Prophet has passed away, I don't think it was out of any malice towards her. I don't accept that it was out of any malice. But I feel that, yeah, she did get kind of like, she was thrown to the wayside, basically. But it wasn't, I think it was more due to the events that were taking place. it wasn't that they had, oh, let's target Fatima radiallahu anha. I don't think they would have ever done that. I do feel that they loved Fatima because she was the daughter of the Prophet at the end of the day. But naturally, to them, obviously, it's not like she was going to have that utmost priority, or yeah, and I feel she was kind of sidelined, and thereby, you know, she was hurt, and I recognize that in part of the Sunni tradition. But and I feel that people were a bit harsh in later on justifying these things. So it's not really right either the way they justified it, and yeah, and but I don't feel that, just to be very clear, that Abu Bakr or Umar radiallahu anhum, or these people ever had malice. I don't feel that they hated Fatima. That is a huge misrepresentation. But I accept that they, or maybe Abu Bakr inadvertently hurt her, which obviously is a very difficult topic. I do recognize that. But I think that, look, in time to come later on, I don't think he would have ever wanted to have hurt her, but it got in the way of things, because he was obviously trying to stabilize the state, and I feel that her demand may have been overwhelming for him, because you have to remember, she asked a lot. She asked for, the whole of all those allotments, which were huge. And so he may have felt that this would be too compromising to give this right now. So yeah, and it is an emotional topic, but I feel that afterwards the Sunni, and I say Sunni as a stretch, but some people were a bit cruel in describing. So Ibn Taymiyyah is a good example, really. Ibn Taymiyyah is really kind of a bit very harsh hearted and very kind of cruel in his words about Fatima radiallahu anha. And he describes her as, well, in fact, in his Minhaj Sunnah, he says like that she was hurt by not receiving fadak, and people say, oh, their narrations, they tell us that she was hurt. Well, what is she hurt about? So she missed out on a bit of the dunya. What's the big deal? And you think, and then he quotes the verse of the Quran that, لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ. And so Allah does, so you shouldn't, basically, he's the verse of the Quran saying that you shouldn't kind of be so heart torn about what you miss out on in the world. And he says, well, this verse teaches us this. So, and you think, what the hell is wrong with you? You should, at the end of the day, preaching to Fatima radiallahu anha, way out of his lane. And, he has some very harsh words and things like this. He says, that she, by asking to be buried at night, because when she was on her deathbed, she said, bury me at night, and I'm not interested in people coming to my funeral. He says, well, this was basically a kind of like a sin, which he says, but hopefully it's a forgiven one, because she's basically breaking up the jama'ah of the Muslims. You think, yaar, abhe kaun hai be tu? This Ibn Taymiyyah, this is the problem with. So these people were they were out of their league, they were speaking out of tone, and I think this is the problem with, and his student as well, Ibn Kathir, and obviously influenced by him. He says about Fatima that, he says, inna imra'atun min al-bashar. She's just a woman from humans. وَلَيْسَتْ بِرَاجِيَةِ الْعِصْمَةِ. She can't be hopeful of having infallibility. Yo, Ibn Kathir. This is, at the end of the day, she is the daughter of the Prophet, and it's not that we don't know that she's not infallible. Obviously, I don't believe she was infallible, but there's an adab, there's an etiquette, and this is why Imam Malik was very kind of about, the maqam of Fatima. He always treated it as an exclusive maqam. So yeah, these things, I feel that some of the, I say Sunni, although today more loved by the Salafis, some of these scholars had a very harsh stance against Fatima, and I feel that they definitely wronged her in the words they used. But then, the Shia sometimes overdo it in their thing. Not sometimes, they overdo it as well, and you have to kind of. This is another problem. So they sometimes misquote, and they sometimes. So you have to kind of be, because I watched a clip of Kamal Haydari, Sheikh Kamal Haydari, who I like. He's a Shia scholar. He's very well versed and intelligent, and he went on quoting Ibn Taymiyyah and some of the things. And some of the things he's correct, but some of them he's misquoting. Like, let's be fair. Like, he says, look what Ibn Taymiyyah says about Fatima. He says that there's a lot of qawadih, about a lot of there's a lot of faults that have been transmitted about her. And then he says, وَبَعْضُهَا كِذْب, and some of them are a lie, and some of them, even if they're true, like he says that, but he says that maybe they had a ta'wil about Fatima and other companions. Now he says ba'duha kidhb, some of them are a lie. Not that some of them are a lie, meaning some of them are that Fatima used to lie. You think, acha, acha, acha. And you're an Arab. Yaar, humka wo samjhe ka? Come on, let's be honest. That's not what he's saying, though. Although I agree in condemning him as well. But you see, the problem is when you start twisting their words, then your arguments won't be. Nobody can trust you either, because in this statement, Ibn Taymiyyah wasn't saying that. What he was saying is some of the faults that have been transmitted are lies. And some of them may be true, but maybe they had a ta'wil, they had an interpretation. Now, I'm with you in I condemn what Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Kathir said. I'm with you, but I also against you for misinterpreting and for misleading people. Because when you also start twisting words, that's wrong as well. And so this is the problem. But yeah, I mean, I just said some words, but I hope that, may Allah make things easy. Ameen. But it's really, we need bridges amongst these communities. But yeah, but what's interesting as well, the Shia do bring this. Right, so that, they usually often bring about Muawiyah radiallahu anh and things like this, but he never really, they don't show any issues ever. Obviously he wasn't in Medina, but there were never, to be fair, there were never these kind of malice issues anyway between the companions, but there was never an issue between Fatima and Muawiyah radiallahu anh. Just on a side note. Right, so cool.